Hello, hello, and welcome to this episode of the Rich Revolutionaries podcast, where I'm inviting in another very special guest. Today we have Nicola Navon. Correct me if that's not how you pronounce your name.
Navon.
Navon, yes. And Nicola is a relationship and intimacy coach and also the host of the Divine Union podcast. And I'm going to invite you, Nicola, to come on, introduce yourself, and share with the people who you are, what you do, and your magic in the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chinese. I'm so happy to be here. And for all of you listening, I'm Nicola. I'm a relationship coach. And so what I do is I work with couples and also individuals to come into a deeper states of connection, deeper states of passion in our relationships. And how can we truly cultivate this sense of union that we all desire? And so on the back end, it's working with our masculine, feminine energies and healing of our energies, and then also balancing of our energies, both within the relational dynamic and within self.
So juicy.
Thank you. I love
And
it.
okay. Before we get into more of what that means for you and your people, I want to bring it back. And I am curious to know what led little Nicola into this field and this dharmic path.
Yeah, I love that question, Shanice. Gives me a little trip down memory lane
Mm,
myself.
take us there,
And,
too.
you know, I always wanted deep intimacy in my life, and I was never able to cultivate it. And I would attract these partners that could just never give me what I wanted, that didn't honor me in relationship or respect me, that I felt were emotionally unavailable in the ways that I needed. And I also grew up as a kid as a people pleaser. So I would sacrifice my own needs to make the family dynamic harmonious. And I always felt like my sensitivity was too much
Mm,
for my father. And I internalized as a child his reactions to me and maybe his reactions of just not being used to my level of sensitivity. I internalized it to mean I'm too sensitive, I'm too much, I'm too needy. And so in relationship later in life, in romance, I that became my self-fulfilling prophecy. I was too much. I was too needy. I was a people pleaser. I put my partners on pedestals. I was too afraid to ask for what I wanted and needed. I was too afraid to lead the direction of the intimacy. So I'd be like waiting for them to say, I love you first, waiting for them to say, let's take this trip, waiting for them to always lead, even in the bedroom, in sex, all
mm,
aspects of intimacy. And so I had this and also, I never felt seen by
mm,
the masculine, by my father. So all my relationships, I never felt understood. I never felt seen by men. And so this one relationship was the straw that broke the camel's back, where I was with a partner and he was serial cheating on me for a year.
oh,
And upon finding out, this was a huge cause for pause for me in my life. That was like, why do I end up in relationships like this? Why do I keep attracting partner after partner where it's these unfulfilling dynamics that don't feel empowering? And so I started doing a lot of deep work with my attachment style and also with working with my energies, my masculine and feminine energies. And why that? Because I realized I wasn't integrated with my healthy masculine. So I wasn't using my voice and naming, oh, I noticed this partner, this behavior, this doesn't feel good. Or like naming the red flags that were there that I did was too afraid to bring up because I was too afraid of creating a rupture in the dynamic. And so it's been working with my voice and doing different things to create a sense of self empowerment to really know who I am and what I'm about and what I want in relationship. And
mhm,
then on the feminine side, also working with my ability to surrender and to be soft and easeful and not have to Because I would toggle between I'm either shoving my needs down and not expressing, or they bottle up and I explode. And then I
Mhm.
demand my needs be met. And so this extremes never feel good. And so it's working with both to create a sense of middle ground of how am I assertive in relationship and direct with what I want and soft and sensitive and curious. And since then, it's been a beautiful journey of working with my these sides of myself and working with my lovers in my life of this balance of the energies within self and how I relate and also within the dynamic.
Mhm. Mm. Mm, yeah, such a rich and textured like backstory. Thank you for giving us that like journey into your evolution.
Oh, my pleasure. And I have to just say this, Janice, because I like completely missed this aspect, but a big part of it is also forgiving
Mm,
my father
mhm,
for giving him grace for his humanity
mhm,
and understanding he's a human being, doing the best that he can under the weight of his own experiences and conditioning, and also seeing the parts of him within me that I repressed. So
mhm,
these parts that I look down upon that are dominating or aggressive, and allowing myself to feel those parts of me.
mm,
And that also enabled me in relationship energetically to not look at my partner as this opposing force, like you versus me, man versus woman, but it's more, okay, you're a human being and you have
mhm,
your own conditioning and experiences. And how do I see you as human first so that when there's challenges that come up in relationship, we can always find that bridge to connection and then work from there.
mhm. Yeah, that intention of restoring or repairing or tending to connection is such a pivotal and potent space to come to any relationship with, like whether it be friendship or business or lovers, parents, like when we can reorient our conditioning to really place a lot of value and attention on the connection versus this here now feeling that I have, and like the discomfort of it, and like wanting to project it or suppress it or whatever kind of patterning our nervous system has, we can hold that connection piece as like this is where we want to be coming from and this is where we're moving to. And I feel like that in itself is such a powerful paradigm shift.
I
Like
love
imagine what would become possible if we're all relating in that way.
I love that comment so much, Chanice, because what you're speaking to is this for me, it's radical self-responsibility and like
Mm,
ownership. And when we focus on the connection, it forces us to look at like, where is this mirroring something in me? Like a part of
hmm
me I'm not feeling, or where do am I needing validation? So I'm triggered by the way that you're responding to me, or where is this an opportunity for me to shift how I communicate because you're not responding to me in the way I desire? And it's also through focusing on the connection that we then don't go into the blame, but it's
hmm
more like focused on connection and also what can I do to um, preserve it and work through any crunchy dynamics that are alive.
hmm I want to go deeper into that and kind of explore what are either in your own experience or in client examples, some of those crunchy dynamics that exist and kind of walk us through this transformation arc, like a specific example, like before what the work looks like and on the other side.
Yeah. So this is a dynamic that mm, I have one, but I want to also I feel like a desire to also share this, that one of the most common dynamics that I see in my work is this balance between connection and sovereignty.
Mm,
And I can give a more specific one, but I just want to speak to this. So, the way
mhm,
I look at it is, if we look at our masculine, feminine energies, the feminine energy is the connection. It's desire to connect, to share. It's the love principle. And the masculine energy of ours is the freedom, the independence, the sovereignty. And so, one of the biggest challenges that I see with couples dynamics is how to toggle between we are spending time together and we're also taking space. And that's
Mm,
challenging when, as a couple, if you're living together and you're in the same space a lot, and maybe it's even something like maybe your partner, because you're sitting there, you're sitting there and you're meditating, or you're thinking about something when it comes to business, and your partner comes over and shares something, but you're not energetically open to have a conversation in that moment because you're in thought. How to navigate that, right? Those
mhm,
boundaries, and how do we have conversation and have spaciousness in conversation for a random share about a dream last night, or like sharing, right, these like beautiful moments of intimacy where there's something that just pops out of thin air. And in relationship, that requires that balance of the masculine and feminine, of we're connecting and then we can also have silence and like go into our own world, and we're toggling between
mhm.
that. I know that didn't quite answer your question. And so I can give a here now a more tangible one. Is there was this dynamic where the couple was going, it was Sunday, and they were going to go to a coffee shop on Sunday. Now, they went out the night before, and the masculine counterpart was tired in the morning. And so the feminine being that, woke him up at, hey, like, are we going to this coffee shop? And the masculine counterpart was like, I don't feel well. I can't even think about this right now, you know. And so she left the room, and she was kind of waiting to see if he would be ready. And so then she came back in an hour later. Can we go? And he's like, I'm not feeling well right now. I'm not sure. I don't know when I'll feel better. So if you want, just go without me. Now, this created conflict. Now, most of the time in relationship, I feel the challenge is really it's around the communication. And so what we uncovered in the session was if she was more clear, so she could say, okay, at the time, she was feeling insecure. So she was feeling he doesn't want to spend time with me. He's just putting me off. Like Sundays are a day we're supposed to get coffee. So instead, it's going to vulnerability as feminine beings. Like when we're vulnerable, okay, I'm nervous that you just don't want to spend time. And it turns out he had a massive migraine. He didn't actually share all of the details here. And when we actually got even deeper into the session, we talked about what kind of communication he would have desired. Because what he
Mm,
wasn't sharing was, I'd be happy to go to a coffee shop, but I don't want to be engaged the whole time. I want us to be able to sit in silence and connect in silence. And so there's these nuances too with communication where it gets really deep with couples that we don't always like to talk about how we are communicating and
mm,
spending time. But so working through the masculine and feminine, I would say from that lens, it's her being vulnerable and her expressing, opening the door for conversation. I'm feeling like you don't want to spend time today. Tell me what's the experience that you're having. Okay. And
mhm,
then maybe he would share, okay, great. What kind of time would feel good for you? Would that mean not spending time at all? Would that mean us sitting in silence? Is that an option? Like what about spending time feels, or what about your migraine? What aspects of the migraine? How was the migraine impacting you? Let's say, yeah. And so the more that we ask questions, then we actually start to uncover more depth around any dynamic. Now, we don't always like to ask questions because it's vulnerable and we can risk being rejected in partnership. And this is where the masculine energy comes is I need to be strong in who I am and not let if partner gives a snarky comment back. Maybe he's just like, "Why are you bothering me? I don't want to have this conversation right now. I have a migraine." I need my masculine to be strong in my core and like then have my feminine still give love. All right, babe, I'm here when you're ready to talk. I could tell you're in a little bit of a mood. I'll be in the kitchen doing my thing, or I'm going to step out and do my thing, and you call me when you're ready.
mm,
And it's like only the feminine can only play when she's got the masculine to hold her. Otherwise, you're going to be wounded. We're going to feel rejected. We're going to tiptoe around partner. We're going to be afraid to reconnect. And that's never fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's so much that exists in that relational space between us. And oftentimes we're not modeled the communication skills and the beyond that, the emotional expression and containment, like both of those masculine and feminine counterparts, of how to actually navigate both that. Really, it's like an energetic space that exists between us, and naming, articulating what's there is a vulnerable process, especially if we haven't come into realizing like what is there for us yet, right? There's
Yeah.
this Eckhart quote at one point I think it's in his The New Earth book, and it's saying that most people are communicating from a place of their concept of themselves in their head or relating to the concept of the other person in their head, and then vice versa. So there's four self concepts that are communicating, and no one is actually communicating with what's actually present here and now. And I think that's such a exposing quote for us to kind of zoom out and look at some of those structural pieces that exist in our relationships. Whereas most of the time we're so in it in the day to day, in the autopilot and the patterns and the conditioning, that we can forget that we have a choice and we have agency over the reality that we're creating and how we perceive the one that we're sharing here and now.
Mhm. I love this so much. There's so many nuggets of what you just shared. There's two I'm going to try my best to remember here to respond to. I love what you're speaking to as well about the here and now. And like we have choice in how we respond. And with that, too, to align it to masculine, feminine energies, I think about the feminine is the yin, it's going inward, it's my sense of reflection. So when these dynamics or a challenge comes up in relationship, it's like, okay, let me go in, let me process it. How am I feeling? Like what's coming up? What's my shit? What do I need clarity on? Like really doing that inner work first. So then the masculine's the outward expression. Then how do I communicate after I've gone through that process? Because as you say, like if we're just reacting, right, then we're going from mind to mind. We're not actually being intentional
Hmm.
about the dynamics. And then the second thing that you said that I loved is these systems and structures within relationship, because I couldn't agree more. We always fight about the thing instead of also how do we zoom out and look at how are we spending time as a couple? Do we feel fulfilled? How are we supporting each other as a couple? Like, do we like the way that we talk about each other in public?
Mm-hmm.
Do we like the way we navigate intimacy in private? Are there certain dynamics within how we each lead in relationship that we want to explore? Like, there's so much that is alive in partnership, and it's not easy to talk about these things. And this is why I love bringing the balance of the energies into the communication, because people can be sensitive. So even things like playing with tone of voice and silence and pausing or closing your eyes as you ask someone a question so they don't feel like the eyes are on them to answer. It's these subtleties energetically that you can either ladder up to masculine, feminine, or we just let it be. It's like active and passive energies that impact how we're received and how how we're received and how we feel as we're communicating.
Hmm. Hmm. Something that's popping into my mind as you share that is like the classic dishes in the sink conflict, right? Very often it's not actually about the dishes in the sink. It's about everything that's in and outside of the room around the sink that hasn't been addressed yet. And this is like diving into these like structures that exist in our unconscious. And I feel like you're the type of woman that's into Jungian psychology, so I'm going to go there a little bit with you about our anima and our animus, these like counter structures to our presenting sex or gender, however you want to define it. And something that I really love about your work, particularly, is that you bring that forward and expand or modify the typical framework of polarity into polarity first within ourselves, like we have both energies, and finding an integration there to create external harmony. So I wanna like pick your brain and kind of explore how you conceptualize and how you work with um, those parts of psyche and those energetic poles.
I love this question so much, and I love this topic so much, Janice. So, polarity, oh, it's such a complex topic.
Mhm.
So, we in our world often think about polarity as this or that, good or bad, yeah, light or dark. And we usually in our world, it's interesting because we live in a polarity world, yet we value one polarity. We often value masculine energy over feminine energy in our world.
Mhm.
We often value the light over the dark. Don't show people the dark, hide, repress those emotions, anger, greed, right? Stay in the light, stay in the light. And so to create in general, polarity is created through balance. So it is, let me think how I want to say it. It's it's non it's holding duality. Like we talk about it's non-dual, but it's not. It's actually holding the duality. I
Mm.
can be both naughty and nice at the same time. Now, someone who has those sides, who has that energetic capacity to go to both spectrums, is what makes someone magnetic.
Mhm.
In relationship, to create that polarity, it's being able to have that mix. So, for example, if there's a really sweet, beautiful, intimate moment in relationship, the intimacy over time can feel too heavy, right? In that moment, something needs to cut it with a little bit of tension, a humorous joke, right? A witty little smile, and then you get up and like go make tea and then come back. Like finding ways to add tension into dynamics and add texture into dynamics. So you can do it
Mhm.
with like the intimacy and the humor. It's also balancing the connection and the disconnection, that same scenario. If you're really connected, how do you also take space so that the person misses you, right? You think about those beginning stages of a relationship. What's so attractive? I don't know what they're thinking. Yeah, I don't know where they are. Yet there's also deep connected moments where you're sharing about your life and your dreams and your goals and your traumas, right? All this stuff. But it's that balance that actually fuels this. I want to keep leaning in. I want to keep getting to know you.
Mhm.
So there's an element of mystery to it too.
Mhm.
Now, there's also this element of masculine, feminine energies. Now, as you so beautifully said, Chanice, so many teachers, they focus on this like women be in the femme, men be in the masculine to create that polarity. Now, that's not how we actually create authentic polarity. We need to
Mhm.
have it within. Why? Because let's say if I want to feel my partner's desire in the bedroom, what do I have to do? If my partner's not already like amped up, I need to go into my seductress energy. I had to pull it out of them. So whatever that is for you, that might be wearing lingerie, that might be saying sexy things, that might be a little touch here and there, stoking their fire. Now, seductress energy, dark feminine energy is what? It's masculine energy.
Mhm.
So I need to go into my masculine to then get them out of the feminine and into the masculine. So then I sink back into the feminine and receive. And it's
Mhm.
this dance. So it's kind of like if a partner is massaging my back, partner's massaging my back, and I start massaging them back, I am going into the masculine.
Mhm.
If I want to keep that polarity, I need to receive it, at least for a few minutes. Count 2, 3, 5, 10. Then you switch. In partnership that's conscious, it's like then they know I need to receive. And so when we have that balance within, we know how to pull the opposing energy out of partner. And we
Mhm.
also understand that those principles of balance. So we are more able to not manipulate, that gets a negative rap. We're more
Move
able
the
to
energy.
play with energy. Yeah.
Hmm.
Play with the energy in a moment.
Hmm. Yes. I was so like drawn into what you were sharing and I forgot what I was talking about before.
Yeah.
I love that
You were
though.
talking about
That's
the
the
Jungian
perfect,
theory. Yeah.
yeah, but that's the perfect example of like attraction and magnetism, right? You were sharing with so much passion that I was just leaning in and I've kind of just let everything else diffuse around me. And something that did really ping or light up for me of what you were sharing was this feminine receptivity that so many women are navigating, rooting deeper into the receivership. And I want to loop this back around to what we kind of touched on before we hit record with the mother-father wounds of too much, not enough, and how that impacts both on a personal level, our capacity to be in receivership, and then how that kind of ripples into our relationships.
Yeah. Such a good question. And when these wounds aren't healed within, we end up like replaying these cycles in our relationship. And these wounds keep us separated from each other as opposed to seeing each other for their humanity, seeing each other as a human being first. And so for me, the key is in relationship, if you're a feminine being and you've had experiences with a father who didn't honor your femininity, who you maybe felt like you were too sensitive, like you were too much, who wasn't emotionally available, who wasn't physically available, who passed early, um, whatever it might be, or maybe you didn't have a father figure in your life at all, or a stable masculine figure, and vice versa for men and the feminine figure. There's deep work that needs to be done to first forgive that person and
Mhm.
understand their humanity, and also to allow ourselves to tune into, let me think how I want to say it. Forgive that person, forgive their humanity. And a part of it is also, as feminine beings, oftentimes what can happen with the father wound is we're still looking for that masculine figure to save us, to validate us, to fix us, to make us whole. And so this is why doing that inner work of cultivating that masculine within is because we don't want to go the route of hyper independence. I can't rely on anyone. But what I'm saying is owning, okay, maybe in childhood it's different when you're dependent and you're not able to keep yourself safe, and it's a different dynamic than when you are a fully sovereign adult in the world and saying, okay, that doesn't keep me safe right now to try to find that. Yeah, it's not actually helping my empowerment, my well-being. And so it's doing the work to cultivate inner safety within, to whatever it might be for you, whether it's doing meditations and feeling inside your body and feeling good inside your body, not feeling contracted, noticing where am I contracted in a tense moment? Where am I not breathing? Open up the body. Where am I feeling triggered from something partner said or a friend said? And I notice I'm going into reactive mode and my jaw's tightening and my belly's tightening. Okay, coming back into the body, coming back into my state of I am also taken care of. And I have to say, for me, this is also where faith comes in, whether it's
Mhm.
God, source, higher power, it's also understanding I am taken care of by the universal I refer to it as the masculine, but it doesn't have to be. It's a universal energy. It's both.
Mhm.
It's honestly both. So I shouldn't say that, but it's
Mhm.
universal energy. I am taken care of. I am provided for. So anything externally, father figure, partner figure, you're sourcing that spiritual connection to someone else. And we can never source that to someone else. And for
Mhm.
me, where faith comes in is if we don't also think of that higher power, then life feels heavy because then we think it's all in on us.
Mhm.
And that's where that hyper independence can come. I have to figure it out. I have to take care of it. And instead, sometimes it's like, I don't have all the answers. I'm going to try. I know we're going down a tangent here, but it just came. I'm going to try my best
Okay.
to do what's in alignment and to listen and to tune in and to be quiet and to be in that feminine receptive energy because when I'm not listening and I'm not grounded, I miss the synchronicities of life.
Mhm.
I miss that. Someone refers me to go to this coffee shop, and maybe you go to this coffee shop and then you meet someone that you're supposed to meet, and you're not attuned to the synchronicities when we are not open. And
Mhm.
we're so focused with blinders on the path that we want to go and what we need.
Mhm. Yeah, that element of surrender and trust into a higher power, I think, is something that we're always going to be spiraling into deeper levels with. At least that's been my experience with it. And something I want to name too about that, like masculine relationship that's so prevalent for at least me and my partner. Both of our fathers were not present in the sense of they were always working, like very business oriented men. And when they were in the home place, there was like no emotional presence capacity, a lot of like anger outbursts, both like emotional and physical. And so that has like created this patterning around like feeling like we need to figure it out and that there's this broken trust with that providership, right? And
Oh,
to reconfigure that both within ourselves and within our partnership, I feel like is my greatest work in this life. And where do I want to take that?
yeah. Ooh, this is so good.
Hmm. I want to take it into the body actually. s- like when we're in our minds trying to figure it out, like as much as it's going to reflect in our external reality of missing the synchronicities, of having those blinders on and repeating the same pattern of being very work business oriented and not being as emotionally in tune, present connection as we want to be, it's also like I believe in my perception of the body, like our fascia is the reflection of like the quantum field that's around us and our experiences get stored in that way. And like our emotions have this physical substrate like in our bodies. And so, like, I have this chronic tension in my neck on my right side, and my partner has this like lower back pain, and I'm exposing us right now, but this is how I like to lead in my spaces with this empowered vulnerability of, hey, like, this is what I'm navigating. This is what I'm noticing, and like, let's move through it together. And like, what's everybody else's experience? What is your perspective, and how do you meet those edges?
Yeah. I love this so much. And I share a thought on that. And then I also want to say something to what you said earlier, too, about the father wound. But I'll say, yeah, it resonates for me. Like I feel I like what is it? Is it my left? Yeah, my masculine side, my left armpit is like less hairy than my right, So it's like the body does, which means okay, there's still more work to be done to like get the left because hairier. I never said that on a podcast. I've
Silly
never ever
one.
said that to anyone. So I'm like, wow, blushing a little. But yeah, it's so interesting how the body says certain things and it also carries certain tensions and illuminates how we're feeling. Because I
Mhm.
catch myself sometimes in like a loop of anxiety where I'm barely breathing and my stomach is tight. And I have to oxygenate to actually allow myself to be in the feminine. And for me, this is why also the red path of Tantra, this is part of what my training is in Tantra and somatics, is also through pleasure. You go where it's most taboo and you find God there. Because
Yes.
through our, it's like when we, as you said, Janice, we carry so much in the body and it's locked in what we call samskaras. So parts in the
Mm,
body where we have these stored memories and traumas, and through pleasure, through movement, through yoga, all different forms of tantra, the asanas, the yasana, the yantra. This is how we also unlock this stored trauma and energy in the body so that we can feel more open
mm,
and at ease in life. And so our sexual energy is one of the most potent ways to manifest and create and think about your dreams or a challenge that you have and to work through it. And that could even be just from any sort of touch because we also regulate our nervous system that way.
mhm,
I know we're going in so many threads, and I love this too because it makes for such a deep conversation. And I also want to come back too to something else that you shared that was in my mind is when we were talking about the father wound and forgiving and healing some of these dynamics. A part of it is also understanding the structures and systems that the masculine is grown up under. So when we talk about the father and providership, it's also a system that we're born into where there's a lot of pressure for the masculine to provide and to have it all figured out and to be the leader and to be financially capable. And then what happens in our world, given our current systems, is in family dynamics, because of the way the system is, and the women, birth control falls under the feminine being, and often the childcare falls under the feminine being. There's this dynamic where, and I believe this is created. So this is actually something I'm writing about in my first book. Is you think about Spanish, esposa. What does that mean? That means wife, and that also means handcuffs.
does it?
Yeah.
Wow, I did not
And
know
then
that.
that term ball and chain, like these are long-standing terms that create this dynamic of the man seeks freedom in the relationship while the woman seeks security, which is why
Mhm,
many men in familial dynamics, the masculine, many families feel like the masculine, they're lacking in the masculine because the masculine's not available or he's not there, or he's seeking freedom or he's doing his own thing. And so it's like this prophecy that's created from these structures as well, because where am I going with this? Because of the system and the way it's created and how we navigate childcare, how we navigate the family
mhm,
unit. And also, it's a long-standing system of oppression of both the masculine and the feminine, so that men feel so much pressure that they don't have the communication tools to navigate it. So
mhm,
they disconnect, they disassociate, they're not emotionally available. They didn't grow up in homes where they had a feminine figure that nurtured them. So they also repress their own emotionality. So of course they can't hold anyone else's because they're not allowed to feel it themselves.
mhm,
And so it's this cycle. And so I'm so happy that we're talking about this because is this is why the why behind everything I do, because I so deeply believe that we are all a product of the system, and that we all, when we see each other for the impacts that the system has on both the masculine and feminine, because we all have different ones, right? As a feminine being, is be a good girl and don't be too masculine, or you're going to come off as aggressive or manly or a bitch. But don't be
mhm,
too feminine because you're going to be walked all over, right? And so we all have these like expectations and roles that are exhausting to carry.
mhm,
And so this is why it's like we got to stop the blaming and stop the shaming and stop the men versus women, and like see each other as human first, with like you have a heavy weight to bear being a man in
mhm,
the world, and being a woman in the world, you have a heavy weight to bear. And
mhm,
like I forgive you for the things that you're doing the best you can under your own experiences that I may never fully understand, but I try to. and vice versa. And it's only through this that we will truly have intimacy, because true intimacy can't be felt when we don't see each other as the same.
Mm. Hmm. I want to expand on
Mhm.
that. I believe that a, let's say, antidote, a new path forward from these like oppressive systems that, separate men from their emotions and their presence with all the weight of responsibility, providership, and that create like women that are, oscillating in this too much, not enough, just like trying to like take care of it all and feeling unheard a lot of the time as well, is to move into richer networks of community where there isn't so much pressure on the individual couple, or like think of even like the nuclear family model. It's a lot of pressure on just a few amount of people to meet our complex social needs, right? And the richness that we receive in relationship has such a different like textural experience with each person's unique perspective. And the more of these genuine social bonds we cultivate, then the less pressure we're putting on our intimate partners or on our children and a parent child dynamic to meet those needs. And we get to explore these different parts of ourselves that like our erotic desire is pulling us towards, not just through the container of one relationship. And depending on where you live, like this can be more or less accessible. And also because we're operating in a global market through the access of the internet, then that excuse doesn't really hold up anymore. Of course, it's not the same having a virtual conversation as it is face to face. And also, like, I'm feeling really fulfilled by this conversation. And this isn't necessarily the depth and nuance and language that I would receive from my partner that I'm like really craving. So, looking outside of just the pressure cooker of an intimate relationship, not for like, like emotional cheating or like beyond that, it's about creating these bonds that are going to allow us to mutually flourish and self-actualize through like even like generations of community, right? That's how our physiology, our biology, our psychology has developed. And it's just in the last like 200 years with the industrialization and like the increased cost of living and um, urgency and scarcity that gets programmed, and all the fear mongering that's going on in the geopolitical economic environment right now, that directs our attention elsewhere and really makes our scope of relationship so small. And like, just a matter of physics, like a small surface area puts a lot of pressure on one
Ooh.
perspective, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
I love that physics, it
Hmm.
resonates. I love everything, the way that you're talking about the current relationship structure and the unit and how it's so limited. And it resonates for me so much. This, we need community. And also Esther Perel talks about this a lot in her work too, of how do we not put all of those needs of safety and security and love and connection and all the things that fill us up and dharma and passion, and how do we not put all of that into our partner, into fulfilling like all aspects or engaging all aspects of who we are, and how can we leverage all of the people in our life? And because yes, we are, I resonate with everything that you said. We're communal beings, so we need community. And also as it relates to the childcare dynamic, I feel that when we can go back to these days where we are all taking care of the children and looking out for the children and nurturing the children and helping to grow the children it'll just make for such a richer environment and richer relationships because there isn't this pressure, because no one enjoys, it doesn't serve the feminine being who's often the one doing the caretaking. And I don't want to assume, in many of the examples I know, it's that dynamic. And it doesn't serve that the relationship when there is that dynamic, because um, it impacts it can impact your sense of freedom. And all of us have both masculine and feminine energies. So both feminine beings desire novelty, all is well. Feminine
Mm,
beings desire freedom. Feminine beings desire exploration in many ways, different types of intimacy, different types of connection. Just like masculine beings can also desire connection and expressing of their vulnerability and their emotions. And so, yeah, the more that we can use community to also to bridge it back, the more that we can use community to support all of these sides of us and also give ourselves freedom to explore all these sides of us without being boxed in. It'll allow us all to thrive as a collective.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And it like, if we're speaking, you're talking about parts a lot. So I like to bring in like IFS framework, that load that we're carrying. There's so much burden on these different parts that, as a woman to be like emotionally caretaking and tracking different things as, I say woman, but I mean feminine being, or as like that masculine principle of needing to like create stability and providership in all of these different areas. Like essentially we're both saying the same thing. It's just presenting through um different parts. And so when we can come to find that like that unifying principle, then it gives us a pathway and roadmap that is going to allow a lot more compassion, connection, and that sovereignty aspect as well. It's like both and. I want to hear more about your signature framework of the union method and how it's similar or different from any of the threads that we've pulled so far.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, Janice. So, the union method, I use this framework to guide all of my work, whether it's couples or individuals. And it's rooted in these three different principles. One is around healing and balancing of our energies. And so, balancing of our energies and how we show up in communication and how we show up in intimacy. So, our ability to both lead and follow, our ability to both instill wisdom and receive, cultivating our capacity for curiosity, that's a feminine energy, cultivating our capacity to set goals in relationship and in life and take aligned action, that's masculine energy. And so, balancing of our energies within and also within the relationship. So even like work with couples, I've done practices around like expressing our desires. And we get to play with one party's expressing, and then they're fun, playful desires. It might be something like, give me a neck massage. And we do a few of these for, like 4 rounds. And this cultivates our capacity to ask. That's the masculine. I'm going to ask for what I want, and then I'm going
Mm,
to receive it and be in the feminine. So balance is one component of that. And then as if it was individual work, it's cultivating the balance within. So working with boundary work, working with ability to receive, feminine, pleasure, feminine, um, setting goals, masculine. So balance. Then it's also communication, mastering our communication. How do we actually communicate? Because we could do all the energetic work, but if we don't actually feel good in our ability to communicate with other people, or even
mm,
how we communicate with ourselves or with the universe, God, then it makes it hard to actually manifest and then shift dynamics. So
mm,
part of it's also working on voice and how we show up. And then the third aspect is polarity and understanding what creates magnetic attraction and how to bring balance to spaces. And I just gave but a few examples, and I'm leave it at that of like, lightening tension with humor, or if there's too much humor, how to bring seriousness in, and finding like how to bring energetic balance to dynamics and within to then create exciting dynamics in life.
Mm. Mm. I love that. And I
Thank you.
love too that like you're sharing with these different practices that you implement through your framework, how the pattern interrupt gets to be fun. It gets to be playful. It doesn't have to be this like we're in a therapy session, you know? Like sometimes, like yes, we do want to be communicating verbally, but other times like we need those nonverbal communication pattern interrupts. And I want to share a few examples that my partner and I do because I think they're so silly and I love to tell people about them. The first one that we brought in was just a spontaneous idea I had one time. And I was kind of sick of us just either being on our phones or reading our books in bed. And I wanted more intentional connection. And I was like, you know what? Let's play animals. And we went back and forth naming an animal and like fully went into this like theatrical performance of embodying and incarnating fully that animal with sounds. And we were like surprising and delighting each other. And it was so, so, so playful. And it brought so much levity and connection into the dynamic. And it's like, easy. It gets to be fun, playful, and easy when we diffuse these tension of shifting dynamics with like, yes, we want to go into the unconscious and subconscious and like see what the gunk is at the bottom of the pond, so to speak. But we also want to come back to the surface and like swim around and like enjoy the sunshine as well.
Mhm. I love that example, Janice, because you're so good at this. And
Hmm.
it resonates for me. It's like bringing in play, the youth, the childlike play.
Hmm.
Nothing is as nourishing for a relationship dynamic than having that lightness. And intimacy can still, I used to think, because I've deep feminine in my core. So like I'm always like, I want to get even deeper. I want to go deep, I'm an Aquarius. I want to
Me
know everything
too.
about you. Yeah. But like also allowing myself, okay, we can still have intimacy through the play. Like that's part of it. And that lightens it for like a more masculine pole energy. It lightens it for them to lean in where the intimacy doesn't always have to feel so heavy.
Yeah. And that's the like feminine receptive principle too, right? Like we're always leaning in, we're always initiating, then like first that's going to build resentment for us, but also it's like like that leaning in can create a repulsion too,
Mhm. Mhm.
especially for like the conditioned wounded masculine who there are barriers for him to like going into those places of deeper emotional expression and feeling. Like I'm super any day of the week, like available to talk about grief and fear and rage and shame and guilt and really like dissect every angle of it. But
Mhm.
my partner doesn't exist in that realm very often. And so to
Yeah.
ask him to go there, like
Mhm.
I'm ready to just dive right in, right? Like I have my scuba gear on always,
Yeah.
but
And
he he needs his like snorkeling time to get there. And I think that I want to say it too on the feminine aspect of that. Like we have been demonized for that connection to those like dark, dense emotions that, I
Mhm.
just think that's a categorization that's not necessarily helpful for us.
Yeah.
But and so there is this charge around like wanting to have that expression and be met with the containment, but it's again like
Yeah.
honoring the humanity and giving a place for like the insanity and the like feminine rage against the systems
Mhm.
that have created both sides of this
Mhm.
repression to be expressed again,
Yeah.
sometimes outside of the container of your relationship.
Yeah. You know who does an excellent job of this is Madeline Moon. Do you know her work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
that, right? It's the humor element. So it's like because I feel and I have done this and expecting my man to hold my chaos when like I can't even hold it. But
Mhm.
instead, she brings the humor. So it's kind of like, how do I own that it's mine and allow you to witness it?
Uh-huh.
So she gives this example of like, can I just have a tantrum in front of you for a moment? And she's like, why did you leave the dishes in the sink? I told you
Yeah.
not to do. And like, and he's feeling, okay, this is alive. Like it's subtle, but it is saying like, ooh, I don't enjoy it. And she's doing it in fun, playful ways. And like, we can also communicate too of the things that bother us, or like if we want more depth in some ways, but using humor to illuminate, or even
Yeah.
like, tell me how much you miss me this weekend, right? Like I go a little Dom energy, but that to me is way sexier if I was a man than like, I missed you so much this weekend. Did you miss me too? Like one's
Hmm.
needy and one's playful. And it's
Yeah.
still inviting them into the fam to like share, oh, I missed you so much, or
Hmm.
but it's doing it in a light way.
Well, that's the polarity integration of our emotional expression, right? Something that I've brought into my relationship recently that's so ridiculous and I love it is when my partner gets stressed, he has a tendency to go into like over controlling, like over functioning mode. And so when he does that, I'll just lean in.
Ooh, that's
And he's
good.
like, what is going on? And then I'll kind of just walk away and give him some space and come back to it. But if I try
Ooh.
to engage with him verbally when he's in that like sympathetic dominant state, like he can't receive me. And so yeah, I love Madeline and her work and the like sacred theatrics of it all and bringing those elements of play in.
That's genius, Janice. I love it. Yeah, that's it.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Okay. I I'm going to give you an opportunity to share about whatever you have going on, any offers, what you're inviting people into. But first, before we go there, I want to open the floor for you to bring forward any open loops or unpulled threads that you want to weave together.
mm, I love that. Thank you. Hmm. We covered so much that off the top of no, I'm honestly love the note that we ended on. And so
Mm,
for me, it's no unpulled threads. This feels good. And I invite, if for all those of you listening, if there's a certain topic where you're like, yes, we want to know more about, drop myself or Chinese a line. And, would love to pull that thread, through a DM or something, or in a
mhm,
future piece of content or some creative way that we will find. And this was so amazing, Chanice. Just all of the angles that we talked about. And, we covered some stuff with the father wound and a little bit about masculine, feminine energies. And like these topics are so deep, and polarity and the nervous system and the body and the energetics and communication and theatrics, where I'm like, these topics could be hundreds of episodes. So this to me, I'm loving this frequency. I love this conversation so much. And for those of you listening, to come into my world right now, I'm just doing one-on-one work with couples and with individuals. So with couples, I do it either on a session by session basis because I like that therapy model. And this isn't therapy, by the way, because this is not, you are broken, you need fixing. My
mm,
approach is some folks come because there's challenge from a communication standpoint, and some folks come because they want to elevate from a polarity standpoint, bringing more excitement into the relationship. And so, in that, because my background's communication, but also Tantra and somatics, there's also the tantric path that you can go as a couple to exploring each other more deeply, physically and emotionally. And the individual work is all around working with self and empowerment and the energetics. And I will say, stay tuned because something is coming in the next month and a half. It's still in the
okay.
works, so it's not ready to be announced yet, but it's all on this around this theme of healing our relationship to the masculine and to the feminine. And I couldn't be more excited. And it's been a long time coming. So
I love that tease. How
thank
juicy.
you. It may be out by the time the episode is out. Who knows? But we
Mhm.
leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get this up in the next couple of weeks. So everything that we covered in terms of offers, ways to get in touch, your podcast are all going to be linked in the show notes here. So please don't hesitate to reach out, listeners, if something piqued your curiosity or even if something triggered you. Like we're here for the polarity of your experience as well.
Speaking my language, baby.
Uh-huh. Okay. I won't keep you any longer, although we could dive deeper for hours and hours and hours. Hopefully, at some point in the near future, we will solidify the date for our podcast on your platforms that keeps floating off into the ethers. But
I cannot
until
wait to have you on my podcast.
yes, I'm so excited for it too. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your presence, your honesty, and your energy, the way you leaned in today. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Mhm.